The galaxy was vast, cold, and indifferent. Stars burned billions of light years away, their light reaching the edges of known space as faint whispers against an endless void. Among these stars, aboard a sleek exploration vessel called the Ecliptica, Calvera floated in silence. The ship's soft hum filled the air, blending with the quiet beeping of instruments scattered across the control room. Outside, the universe stretched endlessly, but inside, Kale felt small, weighed down by questions that had no answers. Kale was not like most Xena historians. While others sought fame or fortune through their discoveries, Kale searched for something more personal, a connection to the past. They spent years studying ancient ruins, forgotten languages, and relics left behind by civilizations long turned to dust. But no mystery fascinated them more than the legend of the Silent Ones. Across countless worlds, the stories were the same. Once, there existed a race so powerful they reached the stars before anyone else. Then, without warning, they disappeared, leaving behind only whispers of their existence. Some believed the Silent Ones were gods who grew tired of their creation. Others thought they destroyed themselves in some great catastrophe. Most dismissed them entirely as myths invented to explain unexplainable artifacts found drifting in space. Yet Kale couldn't shake the feeling that the truth lay hidden somewhere out there, waiting to be uncovered. Today, the Ecliptica orbited a barren planet orbiting a dying sun. Its surface was cracked and lifeless, scarred by eons of neglect. Scans revealed remnants of structures buried beneath layers of sand and rock ruins, older than any civilization recorded in galactic history. This was why Kale had come here. If the legends held even a sliver of truth, this place might hold the key to unraveling the mystery of the Silent Ones. "Are you sure about this?" Captain Zinara asked, her voice cutting through the quiet. She stood near the viewport, arms crossed over her chest. Her sharp eyes scanned the desolate landscape below. "We've wasted enough time chasing ghosts, Kale. What makes you think this is different?" Kale hesitated, turning away from the console to face her. "Because it has to be," they replied softly. "Every lead we follow brings us closer to finding proof." "I can feel it." Jinara sighed, shaking her head. "Feeling isn't evidence. And every hour we spend here risks running into scavengers or worse." She didn't need to elaborate on what worse meant. Space was dangerous, especially in uncharted regions where lawlessness reigned supreme. But Kale wasn't deterred. They tapped a few commands into the console, pulling up data collected during their initial scans. "Look at this," they said, pointing to a series of strange symbols etched into one of the larger ruins. "These markings match patterns we've seen before in fragments recovered from other sites linked to the Silent Ones." Zinara leaned forward, squinting at the image. Reluctantly, she admitted, "They do look familiar. But familiarity doesn't mean relevance. For all we know, these could belong to some random species wiped out centuries ago." "That's exactly my point," Kale countered. "If we don't investigate, how will we ever know? Every unanswered question chips away at our understanding of the galaxy. Don't you want to know what happened to them?" For a moment, Zinara didn't respond. Instead, she stared out at the planet below, her expression unreadable. Finally, she straightened and gave a curt nod. "Fine, but if this turns out to be another dead end, we're leaving immediately." "Understood?" Relief washed over Kale. "Understood." Hours later, Kale stepped onto the planet's surface alongside Lieutenant Rhea Draven, the ship's head of security. The gravity here was slightly heavier than standard, making each movement feel sluggish. A thick layer of red dust coated everything, kicked up by their boots as they moved toward the largest ruin. The structure loomed ahead, its jagged silhouette cutting sharply against the pale sky. It looked less like architecture and more like a natural formation swallowed by time. "This place gives me the creeps," Rhea muttered, her hand resting on the hilt of her plasma pistol. She scanned their surroundings warily, her sharp gaze missing nothing. "Feels like something's watching us." "Probably just nerves," Kale replied, though they couldn't deny the eerie atmosphere. The air was unnaturally still, devoid of wind or sound. Even the distant sun seemed dimmer, casting weak shadows that danced unnaturally across the ground dot as they approached the entrance. Kale activated a handheld scanner, its screen lighting up with streams of data. "There's definitely something inside," they said, excitement creeping into their voice. Energy readings consistent with dormant technology. Rhea raised an eyebrow. "Dormant? Or booby-trapped?" Kale shrugged. Only one way to find out. With caution, they entered the ruin. Inside, the walls were smooth and metallic, though corroded in places by age. Strange symbols glowed faintly along the ceiling, pulsing rhythmically as if alive. Kale paused to examine them, running a finger lightly over the surface. The material was cool to the touch, almost glass-like. "These aren't random designs," Kale murmured. "They're part of a language. A very old one. You speak it?" Rhea asked skeptically. "No," Kale admitted. "But I recognize elements of it. It's similar to scripts used by early interstellar civilizations. Whoever built this place knew how to communicate across vast distances." As they ventured deeper, the corridor opened into a large chamber filled with rows of towering obelisks. Each obelisk bore intricate carvings depicting scenes of starships, planets, and beings unlike anything Kale had encountered before. At the center of the room stood a pedestal, atop which rested a crystalline object glowing faintly blue. This is incredible," Kale breathed, stepping closer. They reached out tentatively, hesitating just inches from the crystal. "It's a data core. If we can access it, hold it." Rhea barked suddenly, grabbing Kale's arm. "Don't touch it yet. We don't know what kind of safeguards are in place." Kale pulled back reluctantly, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "You're always so cautious. And you're always too eager to get yourself killed," Rhea shot back. "Let's at least run diagnostics first." Grudgingly, Kale agreed. They retrieved a portable interface from their pack and connected it to the pedestal. Lines of text scrolled across the screen as the device began decoding the information stored within the crystal. Minutes passed in tense silence until finally, the interface displayed a single line of text. "We are not gone. Find US." Kale froze, staring at the message. Their heart pounded in their chest as realization dawned. This wasn't just another relic, it was a plea, a call to action buried deep within the ruins of a forgotten world. "What does it say?" Rhea asked, peering over Kale's shoulder. Kale swallowed hard. "It says we are not gone. Find us." Rhea frowned. "Who's we?" "I think—" Kale hesitated, unsure whether to voice their growing suspicion. "I think it's referring to humans." "Humans?" Rhea echoed, incredulous. "You mean those mythical creatures everyone talks about? The ones who supposedly ruled the galaxy before disappearing?" "Yes," Kale said firmly. "And now I think we've found proof they really existed." Rhea shook her head. "Even if they did exist, why would they leave messages like this? Why go to all this trouble?" Kale didn't have an answer. All they knew was that this discovery changed everything. Humans weren't just legends, they were real. And somewhere out there, they were waiting to be found out as they prepared to leave the chamber. Kale couldn't shake the feeling that their journey was only beginning. Whatever secrets lay hidden among the stars, one thing was certain. Humanity's story was far from over. The Ecliptica drifted silently through the void, its sleek hull reflecting the faint glow of distant stars. Inside, the crew moved with purpose, their steps echoing softly against the metal floors. Tension hung thick in the air, a mixture of excitement and unease that no one dared to voice aloud. Kale Vera sat alone in the ship's research lab, staring at the data core recovered from the ruins. The crystalline object pulsed faintly, its blue light casting long shadows across the room. It was alive in a way Kale couldn't fully understand, an artifact of a forgotten age, holding secrets too immense for words. Captain Zinara entered without knocking, her boots clicking sharply against the floor. She crossed her arms and leaned against the doorway, watching Kale with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. "Still trying to crack it?" she asked, her tone sharp but not unkind. Kale glanced up briefly before returning their focus to the glowing crystal. "It's complicated," they admitted. "This isn't like anything we've encountered before. Whoever made this, they were far ahead of us." Zinara stepped closer, her gaze fixed on the pulsing light. "And you're sure it belongs to humans?" "As sure as I can be," Kale replied. "The symbols match fragments we found elsewhere. And then there's the message." They trailed off, replaying the words in their mind. "We are not gone." "Find us," Zinara frowned. "Even if it is human, what does it mean? Are they asking for help? Or warning us away?" "I don't know," Kale admitted. "But I think we owe it to them, to ourselves, to find out." Zinara sighed, running a hand through her short-cropped hair. "You realize how dangerous this could be, right? If humans really did vanish because of some catastrophe, chasing after them might lead us straight into trouble." Kale nodded. They understood the risks, but something deep inside pushed them forward. This wasn't just about uncovering history. It felt personal, as though the message had been left specifically for them. "If we don't try," Kale said quietly, "we'll never know." Days passed as the Ecliptica continued its journey deeper into uncharted space. The crew worked tirelessly, analyzing every scrap of information extracted from the data core. Slowly, patterns began to emerge, coordinates scattered across star systems, references to hidden locations, and fragments of ancient star maps. But the most startling discovery came when Lieutenant Rhea Draven detected an anomaly during routine scans. "Something's out there," Rhea announced over the ship's intercom, her voice tense. A signal. Faint but consistent. Kale rushed to the bridge, heart pounding with anticipation. On the main screen, a series of numbers and waveforms flickered erratically. The signal repeated itself in steady intervals, carrying a single phrase encoded in archaic human language. "We are not gone. Find us." "It's the same message," Kale whispered, their voice trembling with awe. "They're calling us." Captain Zinara stood beside them, her expression unreadable. "Calling us where?" "That signal's coming from beyond our charts. We don't even know what's out there." "We have to go," Kale insisted. "This could be our only chance to find answers." "And what if it's a trap?" Rhea interjected, stepping onto the bridge. Her hand rested instinctively on her weapon. "For all we know, this could be bait laid by scavengers or worse." Kale hesitated, glancing between the captain and the lieutenant. They knew the risks, but the pull of discovery was overwhelming. "If we turn back now," they said finally, "we'll always wonder. Isn't that worse than any danger?" Zinara exchanged a glance with Rhea, who gave a reluctant shrug. After a long pause, the captain nodded. "Fine, but we proceed with caution. One wrong move, and we're out of there." The journey took weeks, pushing the Ecliptica to its limits as it navigated treacherous asteroid fields, swirling nebulae, and regions of space distorted by gravitational anomalies. The crew grew restless, their nerves fraying under the weight of uncertainty. Each day brought new challenges, yet Kale remained steadfast, driven by the promise of uncovering humanity's truth. Finally, they reached the source of the signal, a desolate star system dominated by a massive black hole. Its gravity warped the surrounding space, creating a chaotic maelstrom of debris and radiation. At its edge floated a sight that left the entire crew speechless, a sprawling fleet of warships, drifting silently in orbit. There. Human, Kale breathed, their voice barely audible over the hum of the ship's engines. The vessels bore unmistakable signs of human design: sleek lines, angular shapes, and faded insignias etched into their hulls. Despite centuries of neglect, they radiated power and resilience. Captain Zanara studied the scene with a mixture of awe and suspicion. How is this possible? These ships should have fallen apart eons ago. They're advanced, Kale replied, their eyes wide with wonder. Far beyond anything we've seen. Whoever built these knew how to make things last. Rhea tightened her grip on her weapon, scanning the fleet for signs of movement. Let's hope they stayed that way. Because if those ships wake up, we're dead. Ignoring the tension, Kale turned to Zanara. We need to investigate. There could be answers aboard those ships. The captain hesitated, weighing the risks. Finally, she gave a curt nod. Take a team, but stay alert. If anything seems off, you pull out immediately. Kale led a small group aboard one of the derelict ships, their boots clanging softly against the metal floor. The interior was dimly lit, illuminated only by faint emergency lights that flickered sporadically. Dust coated every surface, muffling their footsteps as they moved deeper into the vessel. This place feels haunted, muttered Ensign Dax, one of the younger crew members. His voice echoed nervously in the narrow corridors. It's just old, Kale reassured him, though they couldn't deny the eerie atmosphere. Every corner seemed to whisper secrets, every shadow hiding untold stories thought as they explored. They uncovered evidence of a desperate exodus. Logs recorded frantic messages from the ship's crew, detailing a hasty retreat from an unknown enemy. Supplies were abandoned mid-use, weapons left charging in racks. It was as though the humans had fled in the middle of battle, leaving everything behind. This doesn't make sense, Kale murmured, reviewing the logs. Why would they abandon such powerful ships? What could have scared them so much? Before anyone could answer, a low hum filled the air. The lights brightened suddenly, bathing the corridor in harsh white light. Alarms blared, and the ship shuddered violently. They're waking up! Rhea shouted, drawing her weapon. We need to get out of here now. No. Kale countered, grabbing her arm. Wait, look. They pointed to a nearby console, where a holographic figure flickered to life. It was humanoid, clad in ancient military attire, its face obscured by static. Unauthorized entry detected, the figure intoned, its voice mechanical yet eerily calm. Identify yourselves. Kale stepped forward, raising their hands slowly. We're explorers. We mean no harm. We're looking for answers about humanity. The figure paused, its form flickering as it processed the response. Humanity endures, it said finally, but the threat remains. You must leave this place. What threat? Kale demanded. Who are you? I am Prometheus, the figure replied, guardian of the fleet. My purpose is to protect what remains of humanity's legacy. Then tell us what happened. Kale pleaded. Why did humanity disappear? Where did they go? Prometheus hesitated, its form stabilizing slightly. The Voidborn came, it said gravely. Parasitic entities, capable of consuming entire civilizations. Humanity fled to preserve itself, leaving behind fragments of its strength. Now, your presence has awakened the fleet and drawn the Voidborn's attention. Rhea swore under her breath. I knew this was a bad idea. Kale ignored her, focusing on Prometheus. Is humanity still alive? The AIS response was cryptic. Survival depends on unity. Seek the scattered fleets. Together, you may yet stand against the darkness. Before Kale could ask more, the ship trembled again, alarms growing louder. We need to go, Rhea barked, grabbing Kale's arm. Reluctantly, Kale followed, their mind racing with questions. As they returned to the Ecliptica, the fleet loomed ominously in the distance, its dormant weapons powering up. Whatever peace they had found was fleeting. The galaxy's silence was about to be shattered once more. The Ecliptica hovered at the edge of the black hole's gravitational pull, its crew tense and on high alert. The massive fleet of human warships loomed nearby, their once silent hulls now alive with faint lights and subtle vibrations. It was as if the ships themselves were waking from a centuries-long slumber, shaking off the dust of time to prepare for battle. Kale Vera stood on the bridge, staring out at the sight through the viewport, their mind racing with questions and fears. What do we do now? Captain Zenara asked, breaking the silence. Her voice was sharp but controlled, betraying the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. Kale turned to face her, their expression conflicted. "We need more answers," they said finally. Prometheus mentioned the Voidborn, whatever they are. They're dangerous enough to drive humanity into hiding. If we leave now, we might never understand what happened. And if we stay, Rhea Draven interjected, stepping forward with her arms crossed, we risk walking straight into a fight we can't win. Those ships may look impressive, but they haven't fired a shot in who knows how long. Are they even functional? They're functional, Kale replied firmly. Despite the uncertainty surrounding them, they couldn't ignore the evidence before their eyes. The fleet had awakened at their arrival, responding to their presence. That alone proved it was far from dead. Prometheus said humanity left behind fragments of its strength. This fleet is one of those fragments. We can't just abandon it. Zenara sighed, rubbing her temples. She glanced at Rhea, then back at Kale. Fine, but we go in small teams. No unnecessary risks. If things get bad, we retreat immediately. Kale led another team back into one of the derelict ships, this time accompanied by Lieutenant Rhea and 2 engineers tasked with assessing the vessel's systems. As they stepped aboard, the hum of power grew louder, vibrating through the metal floors beneath their boots. Emergency lights illuminated the corridors, casting harsh shadows that danced unnaturally along the walls. The air felt charged, as though the ship itself was holding its breath. "This place gives me the creeps," muttered one of the engineers, his voice barely above a whisper. He adjusted the scanner in his hands, trying to focus on his task despite the oppressive atmosphere. "Stay focused," Rhea snapped, her hand resting on the hilt of her plasma pistol. "We're not here to sightsee." Kale ignored the tension, moving deeper into the ship. They approached a central chamber where Prometheus' holographic form flickered to life once again. The AI's static-ridden figure towered over them, its mechanical voice echoing ominously in the confined space. "You have returned," Prometheus stated, its tone devoid of emotion. "Why do you persist?" "We need to know more," Kale replied, stepping closer. "You said humanity fled to survive. Where did they go? And why did they leave these ships behind?" Prometheus hesitated, its form flickering slightly. Humanity scattered across the stars, seeking refuge in hidden outposts. These ships were left as guardians, programmed to protect remnants of their knowledge and technology. Their purpose is to stand against the Voidborn should they return. But the Voidborn aren't here now, are they? Kale pressed. "Why attack us?" "The Voidborn are drawn to activity," Prometheus explained. "Your arrival has disrupted the equilibrium. They will come, and when they do, you must be ready." Rhea stepped forward, her voice cutting through the tension. "How do we fight something we've never seen? You keep talking about these Voidborn like they're unstoppable." "They are relentless," Prometheus admitted. "But humanity devised countermeasures before their exodus. Weapons, tactics, strategies all stored within the fleet's databanks. However, accessing them requires authorization. And how do we get that?" Kale asked. Prometheus tilted its head, as if considering the question. You must prove yourselves worthy. Humanity valued courage, ingenuity, and unity above all else. Demonstrate these qualities, and I will grant you access. Before anyone could respond, the ship shuddered violently, throwing them off balance. Alarms blared, and red warning lights flashed throughout the chamber. Outside, the fleet began to move, its dormant weapon systems powering up with alarming speed. They're targeting us. Rhea shouted, drawing her weapon. We need to get out of here. No. Kale countered, turning back to Prometheus. Wait, we didn't mean to provoke you. We're not enemies. Prometheus paused, its form stabilizing momentarily. You bear no malice, it acknowledged. But your actions have consequences. The Voidborn approach. Voidborn? Rhea echoed, panic creeping into her voice. What does that mean? Where are they? Prometheus gestured toward the viewport, and Kale rushed to look outside. In the distance, a swirling mass of shadowy tendrils emerged from the black hole's event horizon. The creatures, or whatever they were, moved with unnatural fluidity, their forms shifting and writhing as though made of liquid darkness. Biomechanical appendages extended from their bodies, probing the void like predatory limbs searching for prey. They're coming for the fleet, Kale whispered, their voice trembling with awe and fear. We need to leave. Rhea insisted, grabbing Kale's arm. Now. Kale hesitated, torn between survival and curiosity. Finally, they nodded. Let's go, but not back to the Ecliptica. Not yet. We need to see what these ships can do. Back aboard the exploration vessel, the crew scrambled to prepare for battle. The fleet had formed a defensive perimeter around the Ecliptica, its weapons charging as the Voidborn closed in. On the bridge, Captain Zinara barked orders, her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around them. All hands to stations, she commanded. Shields at maximum. Prepare evasive maneuvers. Kale watched from the viewport as the first wave of Voidborn attacked. Shadowy tendrils lashed out, striking the nearest human ship with devastating force. To everyone's astonishment, the vessel absorbed the impact without faltering. Its shields flared brightly, repelling the attack with ease. They're holding their own, Ensign Dax exclaimed, his voice filled with disbelief. They weren't built to fail. Kale murmured, their eyes wide with wonder. This is humanity's legacy, a testament to their ingenuity and resilience. The battle intensified as more Voidborn swarmed the fleet. Energy beams erupted from the human ships, slicing through the shadowy horde with precision. Explosions lit up the darkness, illuminating the battlefield in bursts of light and fire. For every Voidborn destroyed, however, 2 more seemed to take its place. We can't keep this up forever, Rhea shouted, gripping the railing beside her. If the fleet falls, so do we. Kale turned to Captain Zinara. There's still time. Prometheus said humanity left countermeasures. We need to access them. Zinara hesitated, weighing the risks. Finally, she nodded. Do it, but make it quick. Kale raced back to the derelict ship, accompanied by Rhea and the engineers. Prometheus awaited them in the central chamber, its holographic form flickering erratically as the battle raged outside. The situation grows dire, the AI stated. Authorization protocols must be bypassed. Will you accept responsibility for what lies ahead? Yes, Kale replied without hesitation. Whatever it takes. Prometheus nodded, its form stabilizing. Very well. Initiating data transfer. A surge of information flooded the engineers' scanners, detailing ancient weapon systems, tactical formations, and strategies designed specifically to combat the Voidborn. Kale relayed the data back to the Ecliptica, where the crew worked frantically to integrate it into their own systems. As the fleet unleashed its full arsenal, the tide of the battle began to shift. Massive energy cannons fired in unison, creating shockwaves that tore through the void-born ranks. Automated drones deployed from the human ships, swarming the enemy with relentless precision. Slowly but surely, the invaders were pushed back toward the black hole. "We're winning!" Dax shouted, his voice filled with relief. But Kale knew better. Looking out at the swirling chaos, they couldn't shake the feeling that this victory was only temporary. The Voidborn were relentless, and humanity's fleet, while powerful, was vastly outnumbered. As the last of the Voidborn retreated into the black hole, the fleet fell silent once more. Exhaustion settled over the crew of the Ecliptica, their bodies weary, but their spirits buoyed by triumph. Yet Kale couldn't help but wonder what would happen when the Voidborn returned, and whether humanity's scattered remnants would rise again to face them. The battle was over, but the silence that followed felt heavier than the chaos of war. The Ecliptica drifted among the battered remnants of the human fleet, its crew exhausted yet alert. Smoke lingered in the air from overheated systems, and the faint hum of repairs echoed through the ship's corridors. Outside, the black hole loomed ominously, its swirling event horizon a constant reminder of the danger they had narrowly escaped. Kale Vera stood on the bridge, staring out at the damaged warships. Despite the victory, their heart felt heavy. The Voidborn had been driven back for now, but Kale knew this wasn't the end. Prometheus' warnings about the relentless nature of the enemy weighed heavily on their mind. Humanity's fleet had proven its strength, but it couldn't stand alone forever. If the Voidborn returned in greater numbers, even these ancient ships might not be enough to stop them. Captain Zinara approached, her expression grim. "We survived," she said simply, as if trying to convince herself as much as anyone else. "But at what cost?" Kale turned to face her, their voice soft but resolute. "This isn't just about survival. It's about understanding why humanity left and whether we can help bring them back." Zinara sighed, leaning against the railing beside Kale. "You're still set on chasing ghosts, aren't you? Even after all this?" "They're not ghosts," Kale replied firmly. "Prometheus said humanity scattered across the stars. That means they're out there somewhere, waiting for us to find them. And what if they don't want to be found?" Rhea Draven interjected, stepping onto the bridge. Her arms were crossed, and her sharp gaze swept between Kale and Zinara. What if they abandoned these ships for a reason? Maybe they didn't think they could win against the Voidborn, and maybe they were right. Kale hesitated, glancing back at the fleet. Rhea's words stung because they held truth. Humanity had fled rather than face extinction, leaving behind fragments of their legacy in the hope that someone or something might one day carry the torch. But Kale refused to believe it was hopeless. If humanity had given up completely, they wouldn't have left messages like the one etched into the data core. "We are not gone. Find us. We won't know unless we try," Kale said finally. Prometheus mentioned hidden outposts. "If we can locate them, we might find allies or at least answers." Zinara frowned, considering the idea. "It's risky. Traveling deeper into uncharted space with the Voidborn lurking around every corner. It's also our best chance," Kale countered. "If we leave now, we abandon everything humanity worked so hard to preserve." "Is that what you want?" For a long moment, no one spoke. The weight of the decision hung in the air, pressing down on each of them. Finally, Zinara straightened and gave a reluctant nod. "Fine. We'll search for the outposts, but only if the fleet comes with us. Those ships saved us once. We might need them again." Hours later, Kale returned to the derelict ship where Prometheus awaited them. The II's holographic form flickered to life as they entered the central chamber, its mechanical voice calm yet urgent. "You seek guidance," it stated, as though reading their intentions. "Yes," Kale replied. "We need to find the hidden outposts." "Can you tell us where they are?" Prometheus paused, its form stabilizing slightly. The locations are encoded within the fleet's databanks. However, accessing them will require additional authorization. Kale exchanged a glance with Rhea and the engineers accompanying them. They had expected resistance, but time was running out. Every moment spent debating was another moment the Voidborn could regroup and return. What do we need to do? Kale asked. A test of resolve, Prometheus answered cryptically. You must demonstrate unity, the cornerstone of humanity's strength. Only then will I grant access. Before anyone could ask what that meant, the ship shuddered violently. Alarms blared, and red warning lights flashed throughout the chamber. On the viewport, the black hole's gravitational pull intensified, dragging debris toward its maw. Among the wreckage floated a new threat. Smaller Voidborn entities, scouting ahead of the main swarm. They're already coming back. Rhea shouted, drawing her weapon. We don't have time for tests. Then prove yourselves worthy, Prometheus urged. Work together to repel the invaders. Show me that humanity's spirit lives on within you. Without hesitation, Kale turned to the others. Rhea, take the engineers and secure the lower decks. I'll stay here and interface with Prometheus. If we can activate the ship's defenses, we might buy ourselves enough time. Rhea hesitated, clearly torn between arguing and obeying orders. Finally, she nodded. Fine, but if this goes sideways, don't blame me. As Rhea and the engineers hurried away, Kale focused on the console before them. Lines of code scrolled across the screen as they attempted to bypass the ship's security protocols. Sweat dripped from their brow, their fingers flying over the controls. Nearby, Prometheus monitored their progress, offering cryptic hints whenever they faltered. Meanwhile, Rhea led the engineers through the ship's labyrinthine corridors, encountering pockets of Voidborn drones that had infiltrated the hull. Plasma fire erupted in flashes of blue and white as they fought off the biomechanical creatures. Each skirmish was brutal, testing their endurance and teamwork to the limit. Back in the central chamber, Kale worked furiously, their mind racing to piece together the fragmented data. Just as the first wave of Voidborn breached the chamber, they managed to unlock the final protocol. The ship roared to life, its weapon systems powering up with a deafening hum. Energy beams lashed out, obliterating the invaders in seconds. You have succeeded, Prometheus announced, its tone approving. Unity is your greatest weapon. Now, I will provide the coordinates you seek. On the console, a star map materialized, highlighting several points scattered across the galaxy. These were the locations of humanity's hidden outpost sanctuaries, designed to preserve their knowledge and culture until the time was right to re-emerge. Kale stared at the map, their chest tightening with a mix of awe and determination. This changes everything, they whispered. Back aboard the Ecliptica, the crew gathered in the briefing room to discuss their next move. Captain Zinara stood at the head of the table, her expression serious. These outposts are our best chance of finding humanity, or at least learning how to fight the Voidborn effectively. But reaching them won't be easy. Each location lies deep in hostile territory. We don't have a choice, Kale insisted. If we turn back now, we abandon humanity's legacy and possibly our own survival. Zinara nodded reluctantly. Agreed. We'll use the fleet to cover our approach and defend against any threats along the way. Let's just hope these outposts are still intact. As the meeting concluded, Kale lingered behind, lost in thought. The journey ahead would be perilous, fraught with dangers beyond imagination. Yet, for the first time in years, they felt a sense of purpose, a belief that their actions could make a difference. Outside, the human fleet waited patiently, its dormant weapons gleaming under the dim light of distant stars. Together, the Ecliptica and its newfound allies prepared to venture into the unknown, carrying the hopes of a vanished civilization on their shoulders. Somewhere in the depths of space, humanity's story was waiting to be rediscovered. and Kale was determined to see it through no matter the cost. The journey to the first outpost was long and grueling, testing the limits of both the Ecliptica and the human fleet. The ships moved in formation, their once silent hulls now humming with life as they navigated treacherous regions of space, littered with asteroid fields, radiation storms, and gravitational anomalies. Kale Vera spent most of their time on the bridge, staring out at the stars while replaying Prometheus' words in their mind. Unity is your greatest weapon. It wasn't just a lesson for surviving battles. It was a reminder of what humanity had stood for. Strength through cooperation, resilience through shared purpose. Captain Zanara kept the crew on edge, her commands sharp and precise. She knew better than anyone that complacency could mean disaster. Every jump through hyperspace brought them closer to their destination, but it also carried the risk of drawing unwanted attention. The Voidborn were still out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Finally, after weeks of travel, they reached the coordinates provided by Prometheus. What awaited them was unlike anything they had expected. The outpost was hidden within the shattered remains of a moon, its surface scarred by ancient impacts. Beneath the debris lay a sprawling underground complex, its entrance concealed behind layers of rock and dust. As the Ecliptica approached, sensors revealed faint energy signatures emanating from deep inside, proof that the facility was still operational. Though barely. "This place looks abandoned," Lieutenant Rhea Draven remarked, her voice tinged with skepticism. "Are we sure this isn't another trap?" "It's not a trap," Kale replied firmly. "Prometheus wouldn't have sent us here if it was dangerous." "Unless Prometheus has its own agenda," Rhea countered. "We don't know who or what we're really dealing with." Kale hesitated, glancing at the viewport. Rhea's caution was justified. Trusting in AI, no matter how helpful, came with risks. But something about Prometheus felt familiar. Its actions mirrored humanity's values: protect, preserve, endure. Whatever its origins, it seemed intent on safeguarding humanity's legacy. "We'll proceed carefully," Captain Zanara decided, stepping onto the bridge. "Kale, take a team and investigate. If anything seems off, you pull out immediately." Kale led the team into the outpost, their boots crunching softly against the dusty floor. The air was stale and cold, carrying the faint scent of metal and decay. Emergency lights flickered along the walls, casting eerie shadows that danced unnaturally across the corridors. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the sound of their footsteps and the occasional hum of dormant machinery. "This place hasn't been touched in centuries," one of the engineers muttered, brushing cobwebs from a control panel. "It's amazing anything still works down here." As they ventured deeper, they uncovered evidence of humanity's presence: old uniforms hanging in storage lockers, faded photographs taped to walls, personal belongings left behind in haste. It was as though the people who had lived here vanished overnight, abandoning everything without explanation. In the central chamber, they found what they had come for: a massive databank containing records of humanity's history, culture, and technology. Holographic displays flickered to life as Kale activated the system, revealing images of bustling cities, thriving colonies, and starships exploring distant galaxies. For the first time, Kale saw humanity not as a myth or legend, but as a vibrant, living civilization. "They were incredible," Kale whispered, their voice filled with awe. "They didn't just survive, they thrived." But among the achievements were warnings of darker times. Logs detailed humanity's struggles against internal conflicts, resource shortages, and ultimately, the rise of the Voidborn. The invaders hadn't simply appeared out of nowhere. They had been drawn to humanity's advancements, feeding on their innovation like parasites consuming prey. "These logs confirm what Prometheus told us," Kale said, turning to the others. Humanity fled because they couldn't win not alone. But they didn't give up. They left these outposts as beacons, hoping someone would find them and carry the fight forward. Before anyone could respond, the ground trembled violently. Alarms blared, and red warning lights flashed throughout the chamber. On the monitors, a swarm of Voidborn appeared outside the outpost, their shadowy forms writhing toward the entrance. "They found us!" Rhea shouted, drawing her weapon. "We need to get out of here." "No," Kale countered, refusing to leave. "There's more data we can extract. If we abandon this now, we lose our chance to understand humanity's plan." Rhea grabbed Kale's arm, her grip firm. "If we stay, we die. Is that what you want?" Kale hesitated, torn between curiosity and survival. Finally, they nodded reluctantly. "Fine, but we take as much as we can with us." Back aboard the Ecliptica, the crew worked frantically to process the data retrieved from the outpost. The information painted a clearer picture of humanity's strategy: scattered fleets, hidden outposts, and advanced weapons designed specifically to combat the Voidborn. But one detail stood out above all else: a message embedded within the databank, addressed to whoever might find it. "To those who hear this, we are not gone. We endure. Find us, unite with us, and together we will reclaim the stars." Kale stared at the message, their heart pounding with determination. Humanity wasn't extinct. They were survivors, biding their time until the moment was right to return. And now, thanks to the efforts of the Ecliptica and its crew, that moment was close at hand. The Voidborn attacked again, their numbers greater than before. The human fleet engaged them with relentless fury, unleashing devastating weapons that turned the battlefield into a storm of light and destruction. Energy beams sliced through the shadowy horde, while automated drones swarmed the enemy with precision strikes. Despite their strength, however, the fleet was outnumbered and beginning to falter. "We can't hold them off forever," Rhea shouted, gripping the railing beside her as explosions rocked the ship. Kale turned to Captain Zanara, their expression resolute. "We need to reactivate the other fleets. There are more sleeper ships hidden across the galaxy, ships like these. If we wake them up, we might stand a chance." Zanara hesitated, weighing the risks. Reactivating additional fleets would draw even more Voidborn to their location, escalating the conflict exponentially. But staying passive meant certain defeat. "Do it," she commanded finally. "Wake them up. Let's see if humanity's gamble pays off." Using the data recovered from the outpost, Kale transmitted activation signals to hidden fleets scattered throughout nearby star systems. One by one, the dormant ships awakened, joining the battle with overwhelming force. The Voidborn recoiled under the sudden onslaught, their numbers dwindling rapidly. For the first time, hope began to spread among the crew of the ECLI-PTI-CA. As the tide of the battle shifted, Kale stepped onto the bridge, their eyes fixed on the viewport. Outside, the combined fleets formed a unified front, their weapons blazing with coordinated precision. Humanity's legacy had returned, and it was fighting back. Captain Zanara placed a hand on Kale's shoulder, her expression softening slightly. "You did it," she said quietly. "You found them." Kale shook their head, their gaze unwavering. "Not yet. This is just the beginning. Humanity's story isn't over. It's waiting for us to finish it." In the distance, a faint signal responded to the fleet's broadcast, a single word echoing through the void: "Home." And with that, the galaxy braced itself for the dawn of a new era.